I'd like to dedicate tonight's workshop to the memory of my late Rebbe and mentor, Rabbi Abraham Shia Twersky, who was the progenitor and proponent of self-esteem in all areas of life, in particular in raising children. And he told me personally and said many times in his shiurim, in his lectures, that when you teach a child something, you must maintain their self-esteem. You cannot destroy their self-esteem or their sense of self or their dignity while teaching them or directing them or educating them. And he tells a story of his own father, Zichrono Livracha, who was a chassid, a righteous man, a very wise man, who raised 5 sons, each of them to be very, very special. One was the dean of Hofstra Law School. One was Shia Twersky. Others were famous people in their own right. Rav Michal Twersky, the Rav of the Shul in Milwaukee. Each of them illustrious in their own rights and contributing very, very beautifully to the community, to the Kehillah, to the world. And he was once asked how his father and mother were able to do that, to raise 5 sons who each of them in their own fields were so successful. And he said that he understood each one's strengths and never put them down, never crushed their sensitivity, never crushed their dignity, never crushed their sense of self. And he says that there was a saying his father used when he disciplined, and it's something that we can take on. And Rabbi Twersky took it on as his own mantra in his own children and his own child raising. And that is, he said, when he disciplined a child, he would say, "Passt nicht." It's not behooving of you. It's not worthy of you. You are too chashuv. You are too important to do that. You are too valuable. You're too worthy. You're too good to do that kind of behavior. And Rabbi Twersky explains that what he would do is he would differentiate, he himself explaining it in psychological terms. Rabbi Twersky explained what his father did was he was differentiating between the person and their actions. You are good, you are valuable, you are worthy, you are a good person. What you're doing right now is not acceptable. What you're doing is unworthy of the value and the level that you're at. So when you say passt nicht in Yiddish, it means it's not behooving of you. It's not becoming of you to do that kind of behavior. You're so important. You're so chashuv. You're such an important person. You're such an important child, a very good person with good values and good midos. It's beneath you to do that. So in that way, he was able to instruct the child to correct their behavior at the same time to maintain their self-esteem. And that's the theme of how Rabbi Twersky grew up and how he himself integrated that within his own philosophy of life, that you must maintain a person's dignity. And his work in addiction, where he was able to deal with people's addictions and still love them and still value them and not look down upon them, because he always would say that a person is an unpolished diamond. You take a diamond out of the mine, it's full of mud and caked on with dirt. And when you take off the dirt and you wash it off and you polish the diamond, you see inside the neshama, the soul, the goodness of the person. And all of us, he says, are unpolished diamonds. The story told by Rabbi Twersky of an afternoon when he was 12 years old on Rosh Hashanah. And Rabbi Twersky himself was a very good chess player, and his father had taught him how to play chess. So they had a guest on Rosh Hashanah. And on Rosh Hashanah afternoon, after the prayers, after the morning prayers, late in the afternoon, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, after the meal, the guest offered to play chess with 12-year-old Rabbi Twersky, who was then young Shia Twersky. So he played chess with him. And of course, it's not really in the spirit of Yontif to play chess on Yontif. You're supposed to spend time praying, davening, learning, singing, walking, thinking, contemplating, doing tshuva. It's not really the time to play games and play chess. So his father was upset. So this is how he disciplined Rabbi Twersky. After Yontif was over, not in the moment, not on Rosh Hashanah after, I think it was the first day of Rosh Hashanah or the second day, after Rosh Hashanah was over, he called Shia into his office, to his home office, because he was the Rav of the shul. His father was the Rav of the shul. And Rabbi Twersky was supposed to take over from his father. In fact, he was an assistant rabbi for his father's shul for some time before he went to medical school. And he called his father into his office and he sat him down, 12-year-old Rabbi Twersky, and his father was looking in a book, looking in a sefer, for 30 minutes. 30 minutes. He didn't say a thing, looking in the sefer. And you had Rabbi Twersky sitting in the chair for 30 minutes in his father's office. After 30 minutes, he looked up and he said, I heard you play chess on Rosh Hashanah. So Rab Shia said, yes. His father looked down, continued reading in his sefer in his book for another 10 minutes. And Rabbi Twersky was saying to himself, oh my gosh, I think I've done something wrong. My dad is not approving, my father not approving of me playing chess on Rosh Hashanah. And he sat there for 10 minutes, said nothing to him, nothing. And he knew at that point, by saying nothing, that it was not the right thing to do for a 12-year-old boy becoming bar mitzvah, who was going to become the rabbi of the shul, to play chess on Rosh Hashanah. And he knew that intuitively himself, by his father's quiet, silent admonition, without saying a word. 30 minutes and then 10 more minutes. After saying one word, I heard you played chess on Rosh Hashanah. Yes. Went back to his sefer. After 10 minutes, now this is an elapsed time of 40 minutes in his office, he looked up at 12-year-old Rabbi Twersky, Shia Twersky, and said, did you win? Rabbi Twersky said, yes, I did. He said, good. And he dismissed him. That was the discipline of Rabbi Twersky. Do you know how we can get our kids to be great and to be people who finally achieve their potential and to be as great as they can be? By not destroying their self-esteem, by not admonishing, criticizing, and crushing their sense of dignity, by maintaining their sense of self, that they are valuable, they are good. And that's what his father taught him. His father was not educated in university or college, as was Dr. Twersky, medical school psychiatrist, or Fordham Law School, his other brother. And yet he knew intuitively what is the value of a human being. And what we're trying to do here in our Resilient Single Mothers group is to learn for ourselves how to maintain our own equanimity, our own self-control, our own value, despite the fact that we're going through a challenge. Each of us is going through single motherhood as a challenge, single parenting as a challenge, dealing with many, many challenges. And yet we cannot allow that to spill over and take away the dignity of our children. We have to have support, resources, ideas of how to maintain the dignity of our children, despite the fact that we ourselves, our own dignity is being challenged. We can ask ourselves the question, how can I maintain my child's dignity if my dignity is being challenged by my ex? If I am being accused of different things, if I am being put down, if I am being criticized, if I am being criticized by my siblings and my mother and people around me, and perhaps being cold-shouldered by people saying to me or implying to me that I'm the author of my own misfortune. And I've heard this many times from clients who are single parents. That why'd you get divorced in the first place? Very, very hurtful. And how do I maintain my own dignity? And I'm supposed to be dignified when I train my child and teach my child if I myself, my dignity is being hurt and challenged. So people are not, oftentimes not respecting our dignity, our character, our value. But I am respecting, I am empowering. We, sister to sister, and all the groups that help single mothers and other groups. This is not only for sister to sister, but anyone you know who is a single mother or even a single father can listen to this as well. Is we have to maintain our own dignity, that we are important, valuable, worthwhile, worthy individuals who are going through a challenge, but the challenge does not define us. We define ourselves by our own self-esteem, by our own Tselem Elokim, by our own inner value, by our own character and midos. That defines us. We are not defined by relationships. The only relationship that defines us is our relationship with God. That defines us. And that's what I'm trying to share with you, these techniques of how we can attain our own internal sense of dignity, our own self-esteem, inner strength, to be able to parent our children with calm, with techniques, with strategies, which will give them the sense of value that it can be the best they can be without spilling over the pain that we're experiencing onto them. At the same time, I'm hoping that some of the techniques that we're learning will give us an ability to heal our own pain as we go along here. And I'm going to share a technique with you right now about how to heal our own pain, and then we'll go into certain techniques tonight of how to get children to cooperate with us. So I'd like to ask everyone if you could also please check your online status and see whether you could unmute yourself, please. So those of us who are unmuted, so that we can have clear hearing for the rest of our group. So I want to share with you a technique of what we can do. So I want to share with you a technique that we can do ourselves to maintain our own dignity, to put ourselves in a place where we can parent with calm and take out of the equation, take out of the mix our internal emotional turmoil, and parent with calm and with sensitivity and with chinuch, with education. And the word chinuch means to dedicate. So we want to dedicate ourselves to nurturing our children without emotional turmoil. How do we do that? So let me share this with you before we get into the techniques and the strategies of what we can do to get children to cooperate with us. And it's a very deep technique, and it's a very spiritual technique, but I think that it follows on from our early work of our first 2 or 3 sessions, which are recorded and you can listen to on YouTube, of how to take 7 steps to consciousness. This is a technique of how we can achieve personal consciousness to take us out of internal turmoil and parent from a high level. Here's a technique. We are operating in our lives linearly. We are going through life linearly. What does this mean? Here we are. Here is time. We're now 5:30 in the afternoon. Here's 6 o'clock. Here's tomorrow. Here's Tuesday. Here's Wednesday. Here's Shabbos. And here I am. Here you and I are. We're walking through time. So we walk linearly through the line of time. And not only that, but we go through time and we meet people. We meet people here, people here, people here. So our body, our self, goes through time. Matter, we are matter, and time go through life linearly. We go through the paces of life, times of life, days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And what is the matter which is going through time? It is my body and my emotions. My body, mind, and emotions. My mind, my emotions, and my body. These are the 3 parts of self. Mind, heart, and actions. It's known as the neshama, the ruach, and the nefesh. 3 dimensions of self. Mind, emotions, actions. Cognitions, emotions, and behavior. That's what's going through time. So this matter, matter, me, you and I, going through time, meeting people, and what happens is we get hurt. Stuff happens. We have difficult, challenging relationships, and these people around us hurt us. So our mind, body, actions, our matter, going through time, meeting people, gets hurt. This is called the ego. The ego is the sense of self which gets hurt. So when we are interacting, we stay on this level and we interact, and we parent here with our kids around us, we are going to react because our bodies are, and our minds and our emotions are hurt, are insulted, are under pressure. And we're going to respond here with impulsive reactions, with knee-jerk reactions to our being hurt throughout time. What I want to share with you is the ability for us to gain consciousness, which means to go up here. Instead of parenting down here in the midst of the fray of the ego being hurt, I want us to learn, this is a technique for life, to be able to go through time and say, once I hold it, I'm going to move up here to consciousness, to go to a dimension of looking down at myself while I am in this world, looking down at myself and saying, oh, I'm being hurt right now. Isn't that interesting? Oh, how would I react to that in a level of pure consciousness? And that's the 7 steps of consciousness, which I shared with you at the beginning, the first 2 or 3 sessions of the Resilient Single Mother, which are all recorded, you can listen to. The first 7 steps are how to gain consciousness, to leave this world of ego, of being hurt, of being overwhelmed, and go up here and go, is it easy to do? No. Can we stay in that level all the time? No. But what do is, when I go up here, how do I go up here? One of the techniques I said was, when you go up here, you go to your beautiful place. I go to Ein Gedi, and Ein Gedi represents my best attributes. To me, that's my creativity. So I'm over here, and my kid says to me, I'm not going to cooperate. Or my wife says to me, you didn't take out the garbage. Or my client says to me, I'm no longer going to work with you. Ouch, that hurts. 1 second. Is this going to define me? If my child is chutzpahdik to me, is this event going to define me where I'm going to respond down here? 1 second, stop, 1 second. Who am I? Go to Ein Gedi, go to my Hawaii self, go to my Revere Beach self, go to my accomplishment self. 1 second. Who am I? Who am I are my attributes, my best character traits. Mine is creativity. Yours might be compassion, or connectivity, or nurturing, or empathy, or leadership, or honesty, or integrity, or resilience, or forgiving. One of the 13 attributes of God. Go here, access this place by going to your beautiful place, which is a beautiful emotional place you've been to, which made you feel calm, uplifted, whole. And from that place, look down and parent from here. If I am creative and my child is saying something to me which is hurtful, access my Ein Gedi creative self. 1 second. Well, that's an interesting approach. I say to my child, that's really quite interesting. Let's try to distract ourselves and do something else. I can be creative if I am outside the fray. If I'm outside the continuum of the linear self, by being myself in time, if I go up here, look, I achieve my godly connection. Going up here means I'm going to connect with my godly midah, my godly attributes. I move up here for the moment, look down and go, how can I solve this problem with my creativity? Or how can I solve this problem with my compassion? And I can be completely compassionate even though the child is hurting me, even though I'm in the midst of a court case, even though I'm in the midst of a difficulty. I can go up here, access my true self, access my higher self. Look down and go, from a pure consciousness state, I can solve the problem. Then I come back down and I come back into the fray and I deal with it from this place I just touched. I deal with the situation from my creativity, from my compassion, from my empathy. Much easier for me to come out of the emotional turmoil by going up here, then come back down. This is called Ritzo Vashov. The Malachim, the angels, are Ritzo Vashov. They go up to Hashem and they come back down. Ritzo, they go up, Vashov, when they return. We can go up to this state, Vashov, and come back into this real world, so to speak, and having touched our soul state, having touched our connection with Hashem, which is our best trait, and then use it in our daily lives. Use it in a linear continuum, but come out of the continuum by connecting with Hashem, coming back down here and dealing with it. So this is a technique which takes time, and I hope that you can practice it. Think about it. Go back to my original first 2 or 3 YouTube videos of the resilient single mother by accessing the 7 steps to consciousness. Achieve that, and then come back down and deal with the techniques we're going to talk about right now, which is how to have a child, how to teach a child to cooperate. Now, I'm going to share my screen with you now, and we'll go through some scenarios of how we can get children. I'm going to share with you 5 techniques, 5 resources in our toolbox of parenting of how to get a child to cooperate with us when we want to parent and keep the ship running. Do we have to keep the ship running with anger, with explosiveness, with instinctive, impulsive responses, with anger, with emotions, with hurting children, with their emotional put downs? Or is there a Rabbi Twersky type of way? Is there a Pastnisht way? Is there a way to maintain dignity while parenting despite the fact we're going through something? Here are some techniques I want to share with you. I'll share my screen with you now. And I'm asking one of our volunteers who has kindly agreed to show us certain techniques of how to do this. So number 1, the first technique in our toolbox is, instead of giving a lecture, just describe the situation. So could I ask our first volunteer to please share with us the left side of the page and then the right side of the page? What is the wrong way to do it? And then what is the right way to describe a situation to get a child to cooperate? Please go ahead.
You're so irresponsible. You always start the tub and then forget about it. Do you want to have a flood?
So here, a mother is exasperated. And this is something we'd all say. We'd all say this. We'd all say, you're going to make a flood over here. And yet it's too long and the child isn't listening. What is the correct way to describe the situation? Turn to the right side. What does the right side say?
Johnny, the water in the bathtub is getting close to the top.
Simple, direct, and you're describing the situation. You're not casting aspersions. You're not making a judgment, a value judgment. You're not saying anything bad to the child. Let's try again. This left side. A father is saying something to his child.
You haven't taken that dog out all day. You don't deserve to have a pet.
That's a very, very strong statement. You don't deserve to have a pet. I bet you that's something that a child will remember the rest of their life. You don't deserve to have a pet. And parents' words ring in our ears for many, many, many years to come. What's the right way of saying it?
I see Rover pacing up and down near the door.
It's hard to do what needs to be done when people are telling what's wrong with you. So this kind of parenting is telling a child what's wrong with them. It's a put down. This is definitely not the Rabbi Twersky approach of Pastnisht. It's Pastnisht for you to leave a dog. You're such a good, caring, responsible child. It's not responsible of you for the responsible way to leave the dog by the door by itself. Let's show some compassion. I know you can do that. That is maintaining the child's dignity without putting them down. Let's try a third one. Let's try this one.
How many times do I have to tell you to turn the light off after you've used the bathroom?
This is a put down. How many times I've tell you, right? I'm saying you are just not measuring up. And we children can come out of childhood with unfinished business saying, oh, I'm just not good enough. Well, how many types of comments like this is a child going to hear per day that at the end of, let's say there's 10 comments like this per day, times 7 days a week, that's 10 times 7 is 70, times 50 weeks is 3,500 such comments in 1 year, times 10 years old is 35,000 such comments by the time the child is 10. And we wonder why a child comes out of childhood with unfinished business saying, I just don't feel good enough. We take responsibility. We need to take responsibility for the words we say to our children in terms of educating them. We have to keep the ship running But one way of doing it is this way. What's the right side say, Rachel?
The lights on in the bathroom.
Simple. The lights on in the bathroom. No value judgment. I cannot let my exasperation spill over onto my child. The lights on in the bathroom. Period. I'm instructing. Let's try the next one.
Get off the phone this instant.
Right? The negativity, the caustic, put down, irony, sarcasm, negativity is very destructive. So instead of putting them down on the right side, what does the mother do?
Jill, I need to make a phone call now.
I'll be off in a minute, Mom. So here, this way, when the Rabbi Tversky approach of allowing a child to have their own dignity while giving instruction, by giving them just describing the situation, I need to make a phone call now, period. The water is getting high in the tub. The light is on in the bathroom. You're just describing the situation. This allows the child to make their own decision. And this is what Rabbi Tversky is talking about allowing us as individuals to make our own free choice. Instead of crushing the choice, crushing our free will by putting us down and making us feel broken and parenting through breaking, this is parenting through making a person have the ability to make their own choice. Second technique, giving information. Let's try this one of giving information. Left side, Rachel, please go ahead.
Who drank milk and left the bottle standing out?
So, and all the kids, take a look at the kids. You have the kids accusing each other, right? So you're fostering sibling rivalry and sibling accusation. That's the song from the Midos machine, right? Who left the ketchup out? Who sat on my Shabbos hat? Not me, right? What's the right side say about giving information?
Kids, milk turns sour when it isn't refrigerated.
So, finished, direct. Not who drank the milk and left it out, like an accusation. But here we're trying to give the child information. That's what parenting is. Let's try the left side.
That's disgusting. Look at the apple cores on your bed. You live like a pig.
That's very condescending, very hurtful. And the kid walks away saying, I'm a pig. My mother called me a pig. I'll never forget that. The right side is, what's the right way to do it?
Apple cores belong in the garbage.
Information is a lot easier to take than an accusation. Another example of giving information. And this one we've all had, and I just saw in my own child's room some beautiful artwork on the wall from about 15 years ago. And I laughed at it. At the time, I wasn't laughing about it, but maybe it's a sort of a memento of child raising. We all have children's artwork on the wall, but here's one. Go ahead.
If I catch you writing on the walls once more, you're going to get a spanking.
Okay. And that's just, child's crying and feeling badly. What's the right way of giving information on the right side?
Walls are not for writing on. Paper is for writing on.
The way you're saying it right now, Rachel, it's really refreshing to me to hear this, as in my inner child is hearing it, is saying, wow, this is a way in which I can feel getting information without being put down. And here is the pièce de la résistance. This is the best of the best. This one is a traditional, I don't say necessarily it's only Jewish guilt, but it's the guilting of a parent to a child is the quintessential put down with using guilt. That's how we grew up. We grew up with parenting with guilt. Here is this beautiful example. Go ahead, please.
It would never occur to you to give me a hand with the housework, would it?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. The famous story. How many How many mothers-in-law, how many mothers does it take to turn on, to screw in a light bulb? How many mothers does it take to screw in a light bulb? One. It's okay. I'll sit here in the dark. No problem. What's the right way of doing it, Rachel?
It would be really helpful if the table were set for dinner now.
When children are given information, they can usually figure out for themselves what needs to be done. This is maintaining self-esteem, letting them have free will, free choice to make their own decision. When you put down, criticize, when we're negative, when we're overwhelmed, when we lose it, we are crushing their ability to make their own choice. So it's a double negative. Not only are we not giving them free will, but we're crushing their spirit. And a child comes out of that with unfinished business of, I'm just not good enough. I'm just not a valuable person. I'm just not capable. It destroys my sense of value and my sense of efficacy, of ability to handle things. And I just wonder, why is it that we parent with guilt? Does anyone have an idea? Why do we do that? Why do we parent with guilt? I really have no idea why we do that. Other than that's how I was parented, I guess.
Agreed.
Okay, it's a psychological technique. I think it's a psychological manipulation, right, to parent that way. Does anybody have any idea as to why we parent with guilt? Why do we do that? I guess it's because we're feeling bad about ourselves. So we want the child to feel bad for ourselves, for us, to empathize with us. I guess that's really.
I don't think so. I think it's just your natural reaction. If you come in and the kid left the place a big mess, you just yell at him. Why did you leave such a mess? What's the matter with you? That's not the way you're supposed to be.
But what about the guilt part? So I'm supposed to sit here by myself and clean up by myself? Go ahead, no problem. You guys go have a good time. I'll clean up by myself.
I don't.
Why do we do that? I think it's because we're looking for our own empathy. So we're trying to get empathy from our children. If we don't have it from my spouse, perhaps I want to get it from my children. And I want people to feel bad for me or to manipulate them into helping me. But I think the direct way of saying is, could you please help me? Period. Right? Please help me. I think that we have to get over our own inner turmoil, our own inner inability to empathize with ourselves and say, I want help. Could you please help me? Say it like it is. The third technique is saying it with a word. So the first one was say. The first one technique that we talked about so far was describe the situation. Just describe it. The second technique we talked about was giving information in parenting. The third technique is say it, as we're talking about right now, is say one word. No lecture, no long diatribe, one word. Let's try this one, Rachel.
I've been asking and asking you kids to get into pajamas, and all you've been doing is clowning around. You agreed that before you would watch TV, you'd be in pajamas, and I don't see any sign of anyone doing anything about it.
Whole long lecture. And are the kids listening? Not a word, not a chance. What's the right way of doing it?
Kids, pajamas.
Very simple, straight, direct. And they're listening. One word. Let's try the next one.
Look at you. You're walking out of the door without your lunch again. You'd forget your head if it weren't attached to you.
Right. Now, I personally have heard this myself. When I was growing up and I would forget something, I heard this line oftentimes. It said, your head would fall off if it wasn't screwed on. Right? And I still remember that today. What's a simple, easy way of educating a child? The right side says what?
Jamie, your lunch.
Exactly. Straight, direct. Right? Get the job done. I don't have to give any kind of value judgments or whole long speech. Just parent directly. So I think the common denominator here is describe the situation, give information, use one word, no long lectures, be direct. Don't bring in all these machinations and all these psychological manipulations that are my issues. Don't put my issues onto my kid. Right, here's another one. Long diatribe. Here it comes.
You promised before we got a dog that you would feed him every day. Now, this is the third time that I've had to remind you this week, and I'm getting sick and tired of it. Mom and I take our turns, and it isn't fair. We have to do all of the burden.
What is the child thinking when the father is saying that? The child in his own mind is going, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Or at best, the child's going like this, rolling their eyes, going, oy vey, right? At best, a whole long speech, blah, blah, blah. What's the right way of doing it on the right side?
Billy, the dog.
That's it. Simple. The dog, pajamas. Let's get going. No accusations. Let's try the next fourth technique. The fourth technique is now already getting into psychology. This technique is a very important one. And that is, we have to model talking about our feelings. We have to talk about our feelings, how we feel about the situation, which will model children to be in touch with their feelings. Let's try the left side.
Stop that. You're a pain in the neck.
Anyone ever heard that from their parents growing up or seen other parents doing that? Stop that. You're giving me a headache. You're overwhelming me. Stop behaving like a brat. It's just we are getting overwhelmed. What's the better way of doing it on the right side?
I don't like having my sleeve pulled.
Right. Exactly. Say how you feel without a put down. Again, left side.
What is wrong with you? You always leave the screen door open.
Has anyone ever heard that? What is wrong with you? I've heard that many times. What's the matter with you? Right? That's a parent losing it. It's a parent losing their own equanimity and spilling out over onto a child. Not acceptable. What's the right side?
It bothers me when the screen door is left open. I don't want flies around our food.
Now, I would perhaps say you don't need the first line. You just say, we don't need flies in the house, period. I don't think you have to say it bothers me. Or you could say, it's a little frustrating when the door is left open. Can you please close the door? You could say that if we're talking about feelings here. Probably we can model our feelings by doing it in a measured way, right? And the bottom note says children are entitled to hear parents' honest feelings. By describing what we feel, we can be genuine without being hurtful. That's the key. We can be genuine about our feelings without putting down, without being hurtful. This is becoming aware of our own feelings. Very important to be aware of our own feelings and not losing it when our children are doing something that we don't like. We cannot spill over onto them. How about this one? This one is oftentimes something that we get into. Let's try this one.
You're rude. You always interrupt.
Put down, a direct put down. What's the right side saying?
I feel so frustrated when I start saying something and I can't finish.
Right. And the way you said it was so instructive and loving. It was not a put down. It was not negative. How about this one?
What do you mean I have to take you? You sound like a spoiled brat.
And I've heard that many times. You're a spoiled brat. Don't be spoiled. Don't be inconsiderate. What's the right side say?
I object to being told I have to do anything. What I'd like to hear is, Dad, I'm ready to go. Can you take me now?
And on the right side, you could say that I object to being told I have to do anything, but I would delete that sentence and just say, what I'd love to hear is, I'm ready to go now, right? You can turn a negative into a positive. So it's possible to cooperate with someone who is expressing irritation or anger as long as you're not being attacked. And that's the key. We cannot attack our children when we're frustrated. We have to maintain their dignity and not take away their dignity. And the last technique, that's saying our feelings. And the last technique is this one. Here is, instead of saying it in words, say it with a note. Here it is.
Help. Hairs in my drain give me pain. Glug. You're a stopped up sink.
And your sink is talking to you. Or how about this one?
Before you turn this on, think. Have I done my homework? Have I practiced?
Here's again another tool you can use at your disposal to work for you, right? And this is a technique you can use to work for you so that we can parent and gain cooperation without ourselves getting into manipulation, into emotional distraught, into emotional spinning out of control, instead of manipulating our children, guilting them, long lectures and sermons. Just keep it direct. So the 5 techniques we talked about today are when we get up here, move up to our soul state, and we are in our conscious state, and we're parenting consciously, not parenting unconsciously. Over here, we're parenting unconsciously because our body, mind, and emotions are responding to the pain. That's linear parenting. When we go up here and go, 1 second, I'm going to be a professional parent. I'm going to go upstairs here into my true self, my soul state. 1 second, look down and go, use my best attribute, my character, and then I can look down and say, which one of these 5 techniques can I use? Am I going to describe the situation? Tub's overflowing. It's cold outside. The table's a mess. Table needs cleaning. Information. If we leave the milk out, it's going to spoil. Or the screen door open brings in flies, giving information. The 3rd technique is 1 word. PJs, dinner time, right? Homework, bedtime. It stops all the screaming and yelling. Number 4, I'm not feeling too happy about having to do this by myself. Or I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Say how you feel without guilting. I'm feeling overwhelmed right now. Can someone help me? I'm feeling sad right now that I have to do this all by myself. But it's Erev Shabbos, and I'm doing this by myself. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Without saying, and no one's going to help me, and I'm doing this by myself, and you're guilting me, and go ahead and do your own thing. Stop the guilt. Stop the manipulation. Stay it as it is. Say your feelings. And the 5th one is write a note. 5 techniques in our toolbox we can use. Are they always going to work? No. But we can use one and then go on to the other one and go on to the other one. Use all the techniques in succession. But if we use this consistently, we tone down the rhetoric, tone down the sermon, the arguments, the manipulations, we are going to see a change, a shift in our children. This is not going to happen overnight. Neither is the system of going to become parenting with consciousness. It's going to happen overnight. It takes work. So parenting is an ongoing process of working on ourselves. But if we work on ourselves and we work on this technique of being conscious by parenting or by interacting with anybody in our lives, and we gain more skills and techniques and use them over time, over a number of weeks and months, we are going to see a shift in our children's behavior. And they are going to develop a sense of esteem and a sense of ability to relate to us and open up to us by not being criticized. That is something that we can work on. And I hope that this has been helpful tonight. I look forward to seeing you all next Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. for our next session. Have a good night.